Salutations, everyone. This is Razor giving you guys podcast number 4, flying solo this time. Let me know if you guys really enjoyed them more when I have other people on, or if you don't mind the solo ones every now and again, but you would like, more people. Obviously, the whole podcast thing is still fairly new, so we will be getting more people more often, more different kinds of guests on the show, at least as far as I can get. Usually just friends that I know. It's not like, all right, we have freaking Hideo Kojima on today. That's gonna happen. Although I did walk past him at Comic-Con. I was just walking the floor, and I was just like, I did a double take. I was like, that was Hideo Kojima. I just walked right past Hideo Kojima. I knew he was in town because he was like doing a signing at some store in downtown. So. But yeah, I thought for this podcast episode, we'd just be doing like a whole recap of the year, and in gaming and in other media, and even YouTube. I've launched quite a few new things, not as many as I had hoped. There are certain series that I didn't get out this year. There are certain kinds of videos, and there are certain things that just didn't work out, like the vlog that didn't really pan out very well. It was difficult to not so much find the time because like they were easy to make, but they didn't get a ton of views. They actually didn't do terrible, but they weren't like super popular, and it was difficult to come up with something interesting to say every couple of weeks or so, just because my own like life isn't all that interesting. So that kind of fused into the idea of a podcast, because I'm not, restricted to a shorter time limit that you would typically have of a vlog, and we can just go with a more long format, but still freed up with things. There was a lot of, awesome games that came out this year. Some I covered on my channel. Some I wanted to focus more on my channel, but they didn't get the support. They didn't get the viewership. So I just let those die. There are some games that I hoped were going to be good, but they ended up being good. And there were some games that I really like and will continue to make videos for. And also just different kinds of videos that I make. This isn't 100% one kind of channel, even though that would probably be best for me if I was like just a Smash channel or just a news channel, or if I would splinter off into multiple different kinds of channels, but then that fractures the whole viewer base and all that kind of thing. So we're not here to talk about YouTube. Maybe we can cover that in February when I hit my my 5-year anniversary, 6-year anniversary on YouTube. Yeah, that's gonna be crazy. So as far as video games go, I played, I think it was 25 games this year. It might have been 27. I don't remember if I counted 2 or not. But let's say I played 25 a game this year, and not all of them came out this year. I want to say like 20 of them did come out this year. So if I did like a top 10 games of the year, it really wouldn't hold that much weight. If I only played 20, 25 games actually isn't a lot of games. If you think about it, there are definitely so actually I guess I played closer to 30 if we're really, counting everything that I touched for a decent chunk of time. But, as far as, like DLC coming out for old games, or, different things that revitalize an interest for the game, whether it be an online component or you wanting to go back and do something. And I'm not even counting replaying a game that I had already played, or remastered versions of games, or betas. And I believe I participated in 10 betas and or demos and tech tests this year, which was, I said it was a growing trend, I want to say last year, maybe it was a year and a half ago. But that's something a lot of games are doing that have an online component to them that is really, really good. And it's helped me buy games that I wouldn't have normally bought, like the Battleborn beta, even though obviously Battleborn kind of died a rather quick death, even though it didn't deserve to, merely because of how closely it came out compared to Overwatch, which was a big game of the year. It was the number 3 most Googled game of the year. Number 1 was Pokemon Go, and number 2 was... I don't remember what 2 was. No, it's probably super duper obvious, but for all I know, it was Minecraft or something, Destiny, Call of Duty. I don't know. Anyways, so I played around 25 games this year, and the majority of those games did come out this year. And there were a lot of really good games. There was a lot of disappointments this year. Looking at you, Mighty Number 9, Star Fox Zero. Oh boy, some real stinkers out there. But for the most part, I thought it was a really solid year in gaming. I thought that 2015 was going to be undoable to do one better than for 2016. And I don't know, it's closer than I thought it would be. Of course, there's always, games that kind of come out of nowhere, or games that, hadn't been, revealed that were going to be coming out, and some did better than people expected. Some games got delayed, some are coming out in 2017, they're supposed to come out in 2016, just like it happened in 2015. That stuff happens all the time. Even when a game is supposed to come out in like May or March, they get delayed a whole entire year. We saw that happen with Rainbow Six Wildlands. Horizon Zero Dawn was supposed to come out a couple months ago, and that's not coming out till next year. And probably a plethora of others. And there are some games that we don't even have release dates for. But as far as the games that I really enjoyed, and I streamed the vast majority of these games on my Twitch channel, if you want to follow me. There are links in the description, whatever. I'm sure you're all aware of it, and I don't need to plug my own brand, especially since the podcast doesn't really reach that many viewers. But regardless, I'll do a top 3 of games that I played this year for the first time that didn't come out this year, and games that I played this year that did come out this year. So, games that didn't come out this year, my top 3 would be, number 3, Tomb Raider, the definitive edition. I bought it a long time ago when it was like $20 on a Black Friday, and I finally got around to playing it. Knew that this reboot was very well received by reviewers, and the fact that Rise of the Tomb Raider came out, that was last year. Rise of the Tomb Raider was last year and was a number of people's like game of the year. I'm really excited to buying that and finally getting to play that, because this was a hell of a reboot. Wasn't super duper long or like thick with a bunch of content, and obviously because I'm playing it late, there was nobody playing the multiplayer, so I didn't get to experience that, even though I thought it did look good and entertaining. From what I've seen from videos on YouTube and heard from people say that the multiplayer was good when the game was out, and that was a really, really fun game. Graphically great. Story didn't blow me away. The setting was really nice. The way that the skills work and the combat was really, really sweet and cinematic. So I'm looking forward to playing Rise of the Tomb Raider, and I forget what's the next one called? Legacy of the Tomb Raider? Something like that. I don't know. People with their sequel name cliches. But I thought that was a really great game. And my second game of the year that I finished this year that didn't come out this year would be Kingdom Hearts 2. Yep, that was still this year. That was the beginning of this year. But I've played through every single Kingdom Hearts game with the exception of Dream Drop Distance, because I'm waiting for 2.8 final prologue, whatever the fuck it's called. That comes out next month along with the 0.8 fragmentary passage with Aqua. And I did play that game, or at least a portion of it, and I might make a video just actually talking about that, since it does come out in a few weeks. But I played, Kingdom Hearts 1, I played Chain of Memories, I played Birth by Sleep, played Kingdom Hearts 2, Days, Coded, and Kingdom Hearts 2 was the best out of those. Really enjoyed that game. Absolutely fantastic. Love the story, love the characters. The combat was better from Kingdom Hearts 1, and the first one drew me in, but the second one really got me to stay and really want to play through all the Kingdom Hearts games and make me super amped for 2.8 and for 3. Who knows when we're even going to get a release date, let alone when that game releases. But my number one game that I played this year that didn't come out this year is what I think is one of the most fantastic narratives of any medium, game, movie, TV show, book, is Life is Strange. It's a Square Enix game, funny enough. You know, it was published by them, at the very least, produced by Don't Nod, you know, an indie developer. And just, it's on sale right now, I'm still sure, on PSN, on Steam, and maybe not on Xbox, but it's still a relatively good price. An episodic choice game that is... The story and the characters are just so amazing, and the story that it weaves and the world that it puts you in is just so immersive, and the friendships and the story that develops, and the fact that the choices that you make do make a huge impact in the game, not just at the ending, but in the beginning and in the middle and the little places in between, to give you your own unique adventure, but still within a cohesive storyline that makes sense regardless of the choices that you make, because it's still, you know, culminating to one story, is just fantastic. So I can't recommend Life is Strange enough. One of the best games ever made, and I was really, really happy to get a physical copy of that game. And even I already played through it digitally on Xbox One, and I bought a physical copy on PS4, just so I'd have it on both platforms, and also because it came with the soundtrack, and is one of the best soundtracks of any video game as well. And that game is just chock full of feels. It's a feels atom bomb, and it's a really solid game. One of the best ever made, and I love it. One of my favorite games of all time. And my top 3 games that came out this year, obviously there are some games that haven't come out yet, there are some that I haven't purchased, there are some that I haven't finished, but my top 3 games of this year would probably go down. Number 3, I would say, is that one's more of a toss up. I did enjoy a lot of games this year. There was, like I said, there were some that were quite disappointing. I don't know what was more the most disappointing was Star Fox Zero, just because the controls were such shit, and they didn't make a good Star Fox game, which I know isn't surprising in the least to some people, but we hadn't got one since Star Fox Zero. I'm sure my number 9 wasn't fantastic. I don't think it was a bad game. It did make a couple of mistakes. People always like to shit on the graphics and the voice acting or whatever. And the fact that, like, it wasn't Mega Man-y enough, but, like, as far as, like, your side-scrolling 8-bit Mega Man games, where it did a fairly decent job. It made some big mistakes, but it was still kind of fun. Some of it was absolute bullshit, but it wasn't a terrible game. Star Fox Zero was a piece of work, mostly due, unfortunately, to just a control scheme that is just designed to be shitty, because the way you have to use this broken camera that was like, who made this camera? Square Enix, because it was just so bad, because it's a motion controlled camera and you have to look at the pad, and it's just, oh my god, it's so bad. And it wasn't a new story, and they somehow made it worse. It made it less replayable just because of how bad it was, and like 3 of the bosses are absolute bullshit. So yeah, Star Fox Zero, worst game of the year. It was the biggest disappointment, definitely. But my top 3 games of the year, I gotta be honest, I'm stalling because I can't think of what I would put at number 3. But you know, if the game was good enough, then it should have left a pretty good impression on you. So we're not counting remasters. We're just straight up games that solidly came out this year that I played. There are some that it was really tough, because like I would have played more Battleborn if it wasn't for Overwatch. Battleborn, solid game, a MOBA first person shooter, and like The Division, I put a few days into that game. I played a ton of The Division when it came out, and it looked like it was going to be a huge thing. And yes, there were some bugs. Yes, there were some exploits that people were doing. And yes, the biggest problem were the stumbles that Ubisoft had in just giving us stuff to do. The weeklies and the dailies weren't switching. They had to keep pushing back the DLC, and they had to keep pushing back the updates because all these problems that we're having. the story mode wasn't engaging whatsoever and the world wasn't super huge, but it was a really good game. I have like 4+ days in that game, and it was a ton of fun. The grinding wasn't like the best out of any game in the world, but as far as shooters go, I think it might have been the best grinding. This kind of like RPG-esque, open world-esque third-person shooter. It doesn't like I have a lot of value past endgame as you would think for that kind of game. As far as like how long it takes you to get to a big gear score or something like that, but I played a lot of it and I got my money's worth out of it. Absolutely. Any game that you get multiple days out of for $60, even if it's 80 or 90 with a DLC season pass, which I didn't do because I don't do that for games because especially if they're multiplayer, they just are never worth it. But there are some games that just because of the franchise, I would absolutely pay up front for DLC, like if Kingdom Hearts or Smash Brothers. Obviously, they had DLC, but it's like Kingdom Hearts for some reason. If they had DLC, Mass Effect, Andromeda, if that has DLC, I'll get those. Uncharted 4, I'm looking forward to Lost Legacy, and that's people say that's DLC, even though it's like a standalone thing. For the most part, when it comes to multiplayer games, DLC, absolutely a wait and see approach. Don't pay up front for that kind of thing, especially with like your Call of Duties, but like Battlefield, you get a huge reward out of Battlefield 4. I think was like the one example thus far of multiplayer games being worthy of getting the DLC, just about the sheer amount of content that it gives you and the new things that it introduces into the game. But take a look at something like Destiny, which I also put a decent amount of hours into this year. I didn't get Rise of Iron just because the DLC up to that just didn't do it for me. But kind of like with The Division, they both kind of suffer from the same thing, as that they're off-whiff games, only fun with friends, and I just don't have many people to play with. And you might be thinking that's kind of weird looking at like my sub count or my Twitch followers or whatever, but really I almost never have anybody to play video games with, which is a huge problem in Overwatch when you're solo queuing and competitive and you have to deal with randoms. But I digress. Sometimes I had friends to play with in Division and Destiny, but most of the time I didn't, and it wasn't conducive to a super duper fun time. Even though I felt like I got my money's worth out of both of those games, both of them didn't fulfill the promises that many of us thought that developers had for us, but in the most part, in our minds, we saw the potential. And even when we play the game and we're disappointed or let down by some of it, we see the potential of what this game could have been and what can be built on it. Like when Destiny 2 comes out, I'm buying that day one because I liked a lot of the things that the first Destiny did. I just felt like it wasn't enough. It lacked in a lot of story and world building, and the way that they handled the strikes and the multiplayer was something that you can skip, but if you thought it was going to be good, you'd be disappointed. But I thought it laid the groundwork for really, really good ideas. Even though the grinding on both those games wasn't fantastic, the loot wasn't, the end game stuff wasn't as fulfilling as you'll see in other RPGs or MMOs or things of that nature. They still held promise, got a lot of my hours into it, so I felt like I got my money's worth, even though I was disappointed in the end product. It was still mostly an enjoyable experience. So, as far as those two quite similar games go, who knows, how Ghost Recon Wildlands will fall into that category or be something completely different. We don't know. So once again, back to my top 3 games of the year. I'm gonna go with See, I'm still having trouble picking the third one. My number 3 game of the year, because I haven't finished Final Fantasy 15 yet, and there are some games that were just like okay or like only good for like one playthrough, or they have a really good story, but like the multiplayer isn't fantastic, or doesn't have a great replay value. So I think I'll give the number 3 spot to. And I haven't played Pokemon Sun and Moon. I haven't played Kirby Planet Robobot, even though I love Triple Deluxe. The 3DS games I'm really bad at. And I didn't get Fire Emblem Fates, so maybe those would be my top 3 games of the year. Haven't bought them, yet alone played them. But everyone has their own backlog of games to get to. It's just for me. For some reason, handhelds are just really difficult for me to get around. Maybe it's because I can't stream them, because you would have to get a special modification done to your 3DS, and that would cost hundreds of dollars, and it's kind of risky, and yada yada yada. Whatever. I can be making excuses all day. They're really they don't hold up. They are just excuses. I should have played at the very least those 3 games on handheld. You would think. So I'm gonna make a definitive choice here. My number 3 game of the year was it's really hard. It's really hard. You know what? Rocket League wasn't this year, right? That was last year. It only came out on Xbox One this year. Or did it come out in December? I don't remember. Maybe it was January. Either way, that was a fun game, and I need to get back in that because they've added some DLC, and that game is a ton of fun. And I think I put over a day into that, maybe 2. Who knows? So let's just say there is no 3rd game of the year. Actually, you know what? Give it Arkham Knight. That was this year. That was like what, February, March? I don't remember. Arkham Knight. I'm just gonna do a quick Google search just to make sure that they came out this year, or I could take a look at the back of the game, because that was a fun game. Even though I felt like they relied on the Batmobile a bit too much. Nope, that was 2015. All right, cool. My memory is as strong as ever. I also haven't played Dead Rising 4 because that just came out a week ago, and I've been really busy. And of course, money is a real thing. So, no number 3 game of the year. We're just gonna go straight to number 2. Uncharted 4. It was amazing. I think as far as a full package game goes, when it comes to the story and the multiplayer, one of the best games that there is this year or any year. The story was fantastic. It was a great way to wrap up the Nathan Drake storyline. It's one of the prettiest games ever made. I think it might be the best looking game graphically ever. It's right up there with Battlefront, which, a year later is still one of the best looking games ever made. It just looks really good. The cutscenes were great. The story was, I feel, the very most compelling that has been in the Uncharted series out of all 5 games. I'm counting Golden Abyss on the Vita there. Out of all the stories, this was definitely the most gripping and suspenseful, because when I talked to Neil Druckmann last year, he said that somebody was going to die, and it made me really nervous. And I'm sure a lot of people were nervous, but I'm not going to spoil anything. But it was a really good game, and the story was at its best, especially since it kind of went back to the origins of Nathan Drake as a child, along with his brother there, and Elena, super duper bae as fuck. The multiplayer, fantastic. I love the multiplayer, so good. All the free DLC. They also had paid DLC, but all the free new maps and new guns and new mysticals, and then the survival mode that just came out this week. That's super duper fun as well. So when a game gets this kind of support, that's already amazing on its own. If it didn't get free DLC, multiplayer, one of the best games out there when it comes to multiplayer, and the campaign was fantastic as well. So as much as I want to give Uncharted 4 Game of the Year, my number 1 game of the year is Overwatch. Now, I know I'm going to get some hate for that, because it's mainstream, that won Game of the Year at the Game Awards and it shouldn't have, it's not a great esports game, yada yada yada, it's not a MOBA, it's not a first-person shooter, it's, fucking waifus, I hate people. I get that counterculture is super duper popular, and hating on things that are popular is the most popular thing. So, that's kind of like a a goth person be like, oh, I'm so unique and they all look the same. That kind of like thing really absolutely fits here, where hating things that are popular is the most popular thing. So that's always weird. And you see that all the time with movies or TV shows. I don't like Game of Thrones because I think it's stupid because I think I'm better than everybody. Fucking Star Wars, more like stupid. So that's something I don't really care about. Maybe it's not the best esports game I've ever. I don't know. I just love Overwatch so much. It's such a well-made game. Blizzard's first unique IP. And what was it? 18 years? 16 years? Something crazy like that. And they absolutely delivered another game. It has free DLC. We've gotten 2 new characters. We've gotten a couple new maps. We've got events and all the skins. And just, it's so good. And it's such a great competitive game. And I'm good at it. Unlike like something like Smash Brothers, where like I like playing it and I play it a lot, but I'll never be even decent at that game. And Overwatch, I am. Maybe it's because I'm just really good at first person shooters and third person shooters. But outside of Uncharted and Last of Us, there really isn't like a multiplayer third person shooter unless like you count The Division, in which case you're only as good as your guns. But I was still okay, but not great because people would go rogue and it'd be a 4v1 and I get destroyed and they'd grief my shit. But Overwatch is such a fun game, so well made. The character design, the gameplay, all the patches, the hero balances, and the fact that just more free content is going to come out. And those animated shorts were great. I know it has nothing to do with the game, but everyone could recognize the quality of those shorts that came out. But the world building and the characters. I know that they're throwing the comics away. They're like saying the comics aren't canon anymore, and they're gonna like restart it with like a new storyline or something like that. I don't remember. That was like a couple months ago when they did that. But there are like some rumors that there's gonna be a TV show or whatever. But obviously that's a whole another weird idea and subject to talk about. But the gameplay is just so solid, just so freaking solid in that game. I enjoy it so much. I can't get bored of it. I know some people hate video games that are just multiplayer. They say that story is the most important thing ever. So Overwatch is, garbage. Titanfall 1 was terrible. Titanfall 2 is amazing because it has a story. Even though for the vast majority of people, they don't play the story mode. Just look at your achievements, which Xbox One just added like a percentage thing, kind of like PlayStation trophies has, where they show you how many people have this achievement or trophy. And I don't know if Steam achievements have the same characteristic or data attached to them, but you can see how many people have completed the tutorial, how many people have completed chapter 1, how many people have completed halfway of the game, how many people have beaten the game. It's incredibly low percent. So people say they care about campaigns, they're liars, because if it was, then the numbers would reflect that, and game developers can see they get data on who's playing multiplayer, who's playing, campaign, because, you're always connected, and that kind of data helps drive them make content that is best suited for the consumer. It's an easy process that you can see happening. It only makes sense. But, it's all about the worth that you can get out of the game and how much you like playing it. And obviously that's going to differentiate between a group of people. Some people speedrun the same Super Nintendo every single week, and that game's like 20 years old, and that's absolutely fine. To them, that game is fantastic for, this thing or the other, and speedrunning is like it's whole nother thing. But then there's some people that only play story mode, or that only play an MMO, they only play a certain RPG series, or they only play games came up from this developer. But for me, I'm a gamer of all types. I play on the PS4, play on the Wii U, play on the Xbox One, play on the 3DS, play on the Vita, play on the PC now. And I like all games of all genres. And to me, Overwatch gave me not only the most worth with the amount of days that I've put into that game already, and I'm still like, take a look at like my rankings on my friends list. I'm still like the bottom of like time played, so I don't play that game as much because, you know, I play other games and I stream other games, and Overwatch doesn't get a ton of views either on YouTube or Twitch. And yes, that does have some influence in some of the things I do, but when it's in my off time, I do what the hell ever I want. I'll play Call of Duty, I'll play Battleborn, I'll play Overwatch, I'll play Diablo 3. And Overwatch is just the thing that has kept my attention the most since it came out, and it's given us free content, and it is such a good looking game, and the gameplay is just so unique and good. Oh, it's Team Fortress 3. Sure, you can say whatever you want to be counterculture. That's cute and all, but I like this game, and I think it's really good. I know a lot of people agree with me for one reason or the other. Maybe they like the gameplay, maybe they like the esports about it, maybe they just like, you know, getting their neck stepped on by Widowmaker. We know everybody has their own thing. For me, I liked the vast majority of the games that I played this year, I would say. You know, some were this generation, some were, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 generations ago. And they've been on all kinds of platforms. Obviously, the Wii U met its demise this year. That was a bit disappointing, but understandable because of the number one reason. I mean, the Wii U has a lot of problems. You take a look at what it's graphically capable of. So, you know, like making ports doesn't make sense because of the install base and what you have to do to make a game. On the Wii U, you see games, developers like EA just didn't support the Wii U like they did the Wii, or like they say they're going to for the Switch, or what have you. And the pad and all the games centered around the gamepad, much like the motion controls in the Wii before, obviously are going to have their problems. And I think the Switch is going to have some problems as well. It is Nintendo. Yes, they are forward thinking in some aspects, but in many aspects they are like way stuck in the past, like when they didn't make the Wii, you know, HD, and having only 100 people on your friends list here on the Wii U. But the number one factor is just the lack of games and the quality of some of those games. I played Hyrule Warriors this year. I thought that was fun and good. Yoshi's Woolly World. Well, yes, if you've seen my streams or my highlights of that game, it was still a fun game. It was a cute game, and you got a decent amount of your worth for it. And Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, that was this year, right? That was like February or something like that. That had its own fun game, even though it wasn't a mainline Kirby game like I want. Which, oh man, if the Switch has a fucking Kirby game at launch, I'm so buying that. Kirby's the best. Planet Robobot, still need to get on that because Triple Deluxe is my shit. And yeah, there's also like a bunch of games that I haven't even got to yet that are like 1, 2, 3, 4 years old. Some that just came out this past week, some that came out at the beginning of the year and I haven't got to. And then of course we're gonna have new games next year. And I'll have my own video about like most anticipated games for 2017, most anticipated movies. As far as movies for this year goes, obviously I'm not going to say my thoughts about it because the year isn't over. Not all the movies are out yet, and I haven't seen all the ones that I really, really want to see before I make my final review, which I try to do every year. I try to see at least 52 movies every single year. I have the past 3 years in a row. I saw, was it 56, 58, and 52 last year. I think I can only make it. And I always like really procrastinate till December to get that number up there. And I've once again done it, and I've only seen 35 movies thus far. I am a big fan of movies. I know I definitely see more movies than most people outside of, you know, where I probably don't play as many video games as some people. I definitely play more than others, but I've only seen 35 thus far, and there's probably, I doubt I'm going to get to 52, but there's probably like 8 or 9 more movies that I really want to see that either haven't come out yet or I didn't get to when they came out for one reason or another. Maybe it wasn't a wide release, or maybe it was only in my local theater for like a week and I missed my opportunity or whatever. So I'll have my own video about my movies of the year, and I'm sure when the Oscars come out, I'll have my own thoughts and opinions on that, even though I know those videos don't do all that great. But as far as like YouTube and Twitch this year, it was kind of a roller coaster year in all actuality. If I took a look at the numbers, over around 5,000 people hit the sub button this year, but over half of them also hit unsub. So obviously there's a lot of work that I need to do. So I garnered around 2,500 new subscribers this year, which, isn't terrible. 2 years ago, that would have been more subs than I, ever had. But, after the explosion that happened last year with, some of my Smash videos, I definitely was expecting a dip because there are no more Clone War videos to make this year, and I haven't kept with the Smash content as much as I should have or wanted to. But that's what happens when you are a YouTuber and a streamer. There are very few people that do both, and there are even fewer that can pull both off very well, especially, where they're all by themselves and don't have a large audience to begin with. And I'm not complaining. I still like doing what I'm doing. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing them. If I didn't like streaming, I wouldn't stream. If I didn't like YouTube, I wouldn't do YouTube. And yeah, I make YouTube videos that, don't get many views, but I still like making them. And I do Twitch streams where 0 people watch me, but I still do it because I like it. So, we got the new brand redesign this year, which was long overdue after having the same logo for almost 6 years. So that was great to roll that out. Pretty happy with the end product there. And there's still some changes I need to make on the Twitch channel. But, everybody likes to say that they hope to do better next year, which, is very vague. It's wishy-washy. People always have their, and I've made a video on my rant on New Year's resolutions. You can check that out in the rant playlist. But as far as what I want to accomplish next year, there are certain things I've been putting off that I definitely want to do. I have upped the quality of some of my videos. I think for the most part, I realize that some of the Twitch highlight videos don't look great because they're highlights of Twitch, and I don't have the capabilities to capture and stream at the same time with the setup that I have. But as far as I've gotten a new camera, I now have a lighting kit, so like the live action videos look better now, and I'm trying to stress more on quality than quantity. I know I've made a couple of different kinds of videos that are like kind of outside the norm, that I've seen some comments where people are like, you should do more videos like this, or if you made videos like this and like only this, your channel would blow up. And those are really nice things to hear. I've been doing YouTube for almost 6 years, and I know, not for a fact, because I'm not a perfect robot. I can't predict the future, but I know what's not realistic, right? I can only do what I like and hope for the best. So that's as much as I'll talk about, on the YouTube side of things. But as far as the overall year went, I know a lot of people like to focus on the bad things. Like every single year, people say, "Oh, this was a terrible year. So many celebrities died." It's like, spoiler alert: celebrities die every single year, and you'll always forget about that year and the next year when more celebrities die. And obviously, things are different because of either age or their impact on pop culture or on you specifically. So some years might be worse or better for you, even though you don't know these people or whatever. I'm not going to nitpick, people's reasons for liking or not liking some kinds of people, but people always like to focus on the negative. And I remember the end of 2015, because I felt that way, 2015 was a terrible year after many things that happened. And I'm not even like talking about like global things or like politics or stuff like that, but it's just a lot of things that happened, not so much personally, but overall, that I think a lot of us thought 2015 was so shitty. And then now in 2016, mostly because of Trump, I feel like, because that kind of like put a sour, shit cherry on top. If you already had a shit Sunday going on for 2016, a lot of people are saying, man, 2016 was so terrible. And bad things happen every year. There were some pretty terrible things that did happen this year, I'm not gonna lie, but every year has its ups and downs. Let's just be thankful that Star Wars comes out every December, so we get to forget about our problems for a weekend. But not really. Obviously, there are some real things. So I guess I can talk about my favorite TV shows of the year. The Flash was really good for season 2. I haven't caught up in season 3 thus far, but as far as like shows that play on TV, That's a really good one. As much as I want to give Steven Universe show of the year, because I started the season, in the summer, and I've watched every single episode. Like I binged the first couple. I binged like now the first 60 or so episodes, and then and the Summer of Steven came out and all that. It's such an amazing show, so good and so different than everything else out there. As much as I want to give Steven Universe show of the year, it's really, really hard not to give it to Game of Thrones, because that was one of the best seasons of television for any show ever. And I haven't seen Westworld. I'll put it out there. Haven't seen Westworld. I realize because it's recent and it has a lot of hype, a lot of people will be saying that that's the best thing in the year. And that's understandable because human nature and all that. But damn, you cannot discredit what Game of Thrones did this year. It's absolutely amazing. And I know some people say, hate Game of Thrones because counterculture. That's fine. But it was really, really good. There's a lot of things that have been building up since the first episode or the first season, or things, from the books, which I myself haven't read, that finally culminated or started to get the balls rolling. And there were things that we've been setting up for such a long time, and the payoff was so incredibly good. So I'll give it to Game of Thrones. So they deserved all the awards that they got this year. And while people always like to rag on awards, whether it's the Game Awards or the Oscars or Grammys or Tonys or whatever, people always like to rag on because they never fall in line with what they like. And sometimes there is a lot of credence to that, because sometimes it's political, sometimes it's not rigged, but kind of like it's not fair in some of the judgments. It is kind of fun, like awards of any nature, of any sort of medium that you do enjoy are kind of fun to watch and critique and theorize about. And now we have like the Emmys nominees out for this coming show. And Stranger Things, my God, that was a great show, wasn't it? Fantastic. Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Daredevil Season 2, those were all amazing. Can't wait for Iron Fist and Daredevil Season 3 and Defenders and Jessica Jones Season 2 and Luke Cage Season 2. That's going to be great. Gosh, Netflix, they're just killing it. House of Cards was great this season. After the last season was a bit lackluster, this season was really good, and it's ramping up for some crazy shit to go down. Fuck, man. Netflix they got it going on. They got it go. I know they realize there's like 3 or 4 other ones that are like people are really going crazy for. Some of them kind of fly under the radar, but I watched all of those, and they have really good quality programming and some good quality movies as well. They got to distribute The Little Prince after the theaters dropped that. They had Ricky Gervais's Special Correspondence movie at the beginning of the year. That was really good. So they're investing a lot of money in movies that thankfully don't only just star Adam Sandler. Even though he still has like 4 or fucking 5 more of them to do, but whatever, those don't really matter because it's Netflix. Therefore, you watch what you want, and we don't get bombarded with a ton of commercials of things that are on Netflix unless we're on Netflix. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna keep it there. Obviously, I have my own thing for movies next month once I watch all the ones that I do want to watch. But let me know what you guys thought about this year, your favorite games, your favorite moments. Obviously, everyone has their own ups and downs of the year, highlights and Trumpy things, but it's always like a habit of people to make lists and things of the end of the year, and some of that is like pretty corny and misleading or dishonest. But as far as like final thoughts and things go, it's a decent, why not just take this part of the year to start thinking about everything that happened and make, fun little lists and rankings and stuff like that. So I don't know if this will be the last podcast before the end of the year. Probably will be because I got a little bit of I'm going to be pretty busy here in the next week or so. So let me know what you guys think. Looking forward to critiques about the channel, what you would like to see more of, what you'd like to see less of, both of those are absolutely fair game, and your opinion is just as valid as anybody else's. Hope you guys have a good rest of your year. Let's say that. Let me play it safe, and there won't be another podcast. I will try to have more podcasts with more people on. It's a little difficult to do, especially when you have more than one other person to get the old schedules to meet up. But sometimes we will just be flying solo, either because that's what I want to do, or that's all that we can do in the time that we have. So thanks for listening, and I hope you have a good time.